see no privilege. I don't believe in privilege. I see no privilege. Those who are not content sees privilege. You see privilege because you're not content. When you're content, you don't see no privilege. But when you're not content, you see privilege. And when you're not content, it leads to jealousy, it leads to envy, because you're coveting your neighbor's money, you're coveting your neighbor's wife, you're covering your neighbor's spouse, you're covering your neighbor's house, you're covering your neighbor's material possessions, you're coveting. And you're not content. I know you guys are not offended. You're only offended if I told you I was a millionaire. If I told you if I was a millionaire, you're offended. Because you're coveting my money. You're coveting my money. And so, am I really upset at slavery as a black man? Am I really upset at slavery for my ancestors? I gotta be upset. I don't know what they went through. You only can be upset when you want something of someone else's, when you're not content because you want something. And so when you want something of someone else, it creates envy, creates jealousy. And you see privilege. You only see privilege because you're not content. If you're content, you see no privilege. Either you want that position, or you want more money, you want to gain the world, you want what they have. But when you're content, you find what you have. You find. You're happy for what you got. You don't care about anything else. Material possessions of the world don't mean nothing to you because it's meaningless. Power doesn't mean anything to you because it's meaningless. Those things are not important. What's for you is what's for you. But when you're not content, you feel hurt of what happened to your ancestors. There was slavery. I understand that a slave wants to be like his master. And so if the slave master is lost, then the slave is going to be lost, because the slave wants what the slave master has. Pharaoh is a slave master. The Hebrews were caught up in Egypt, and they wanted what Pharaoh has. They were slaves. The Hebrew slaves wanted what Pharaoh had. They wanted what the Egyptians had. And then when Moses freed them, when God freed the people out of Egypt, God freed them. Moses led them out of Egypt. What did? They went back and wanted the things of their slave master in Egypt. They wanted all the idols. They thought it was better being a slave. The slave master was already a slave. And they missed the things of the slave master, who was a sinful slave. And so we got the same thing that's happening today. African Americans was enslaved by their slave master. When they become free, they want the things of the slave master. The slave master is not free, but the slaves, African Americans today, who are not slaves, are still slaves. Minorities are still slaves. Other people are still slaves because you want what they have. You think that they are living free, but they're not living free. You think they're free. They are slaves to themselves. They're slaves to what's putting them in slavery. And when you're prideful, you're in slavery. When you have jealousy, you're in slavery. When you have envy, you're in slavery. When you want idols, you want slavery. I know y'all saying, I just want a better life. You already got a better life. When God created you, he created you in love, you just lived life. But when you want something that doesn't belong to you, and you're willing to do anything to get it, you become a slave. You're a slave because you want something that does not belong to you. So you're not content. Because if you was content, you wouldn't see privilege.